Why do we feel such a deep emotional connection to traditional clothing? There is something powerful about the clothes we wear. Not just fabric stitched together, but stories, identities, histories carried across generations. From embroidered patterns passed down through families to colors that symbolize resistance, celebration, or even grief. Cultural clothing is more than style. It is a language. But in a fast-moving, globalized world, that language risks being forgotten or misunderstood. As Arabs, we see fashion not just as a design, but as storytelling. As cultural researcher, designer, and advocate for heritage preservations, they have spent years studying how traditional clothing connects people to identity, memory, and belonging. So today, we explore the mystery behind our connection to cultural costumes and why preserving heritage through fashion matters now more than ever. Welcome back to another episode of Chatting with Slava the Jordanian. I'm your host, STJ. And I am back today with Haitham. I am so excited, Haitham, to talk to you.
You.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for coming back with your hectic schedule. You just got back from travels to North Africa. I would love to talk to you and ask you about that, but let's just jump in as you are our guest today, part of our special edition, Discovering Palestinian Intellect, and my favorite traveler. I live through you and through your travels for sure. So, as a student of fashion and style, I love clothing, I love patterns, I love colors. I thought we'll bring you back in as somebody been all around the world and you continue to travel to talk about the cultural connection behind style and fashion and our costumes, and how does that incorporate into our psyche as far as our identity and as far as our belonging to our land and homeland. So, in your opinion, why do people feel such a deep emotional connection to traditional clothing? It's almost like I said, an identity to our culture.
So I feel like with clothing, it's one thing about it is that it is also a connection with land or a connection with resources that are available. So, for example, if you go to Central Asia, which a lot of parts were on the Silk Road, you would have pieces like the atlas is what they would call it. It has all these zigzags and different waves, where, it almost seems like tie-dye, what you would think of as tie-dye, but it's, a lot of bright colors, with different wave patterns in it, made of silk. So, with that, it shows a little bit of the history of it, like, especially if you go to somewhere like Uzbekistan, because the cities there were important cities on the Silk Road, you see a attention to history with that, or that, this piece of dress evolved and material evolved through being part of this large network between China and Europe. So I think part of it is a history portion, but also the resources and crafts found within your part of the world. So it is a connection, I think, to land. And sometimes with the dresses, you can see elements of someone's social class as well. So it reveals more about their part of society. Someone who is more, you could say, aristocratic would dress a little bit different than, a farmer. So I think things like that are interesting, but even colors, reflect different industries. So let's say you have the fez or the tarboosh. The red color is popular from the city of Fes, which is in Morocco, for their tanneries that they have. Although it was popular all through, the Ottoman Empire, but things like that type of color was significant. So it could be various factors. It could be your social class. It could be connection with resources and land. It could be with, your connections through the world, you becoming a hub. It could be a lot of different factors that add to your identity.
That's beautifully put, because it just brings to mind that also don't forget about the social, political situations in that area that inspires certain print or certain clothing, depending on if you want to advocate to, a certain movement, or you want to advocate for a certain, mindset. They will redesign their clothes accordingly. So it's almost like a hidden language, right? So you mentioned color, you mentioned social status, you mentioned, events, occupation, ruling system. So part of it is, it's almost like you have not a tug of war, but it just, tagging on, this is my identity. I don't want to change it, but also at the same time, the dominant ruling has their own identity that they have to keep, intact in order to, teach society that we are still here. It's almost like it's a fingerprint for their presence, within a certain region or within a certain area. While at the same time, I wonder where for example, the native people of the land during the Ottoman Empire, they had to wear certain things to keep their identity alive. I mentioned, it's almost like a hidden language, or they're talking, but they're not talking, because, wearing something, you can't prove that, you said something or you offending somebody. These days, it's all coming back. Like, that's before your time. In the 80s, everybody looked the same. In the 90s, in the 70s, everybody looked the same. The 60s. So, and then the 80s, when I grew up, I was in high school, everybody looked the same, whether you're in Saudi Arabia, or especially in the cities, in the big city, whether you're in Istanbul, whether in New York, everybody had the same hairstyle, everybody had the same style of clothing. It's almost also a sign of belonging. We belong to that era, and that is part of my identity. I still have pieces from the 80s, whether I fit in them or not, but it's part of my life. I refuse to discard of these pieces or these pieces, or get rid of them, because it is part of my history. It is part of my story. It is part of my journey. And the 90s are the same. When the 2000s started, you see people have a lot more independent style expressing themselves, the majority. So we went from majority, everybody looked pretty much the same, going with the trend, to now everybody, that the majority of people don't want to look the same. The identity is getting refined or restructured somehow. This is who I am. This is how I want to appear in public. Take it or leave it, kind of thing. So it's just a little glimpse of somebody in my generation watching the fashion or the style, going from a very traditional culture where I was surrounded by older women wearing a Tob al-Palestinian in Jordan, and then older women in Saudi Arabia wearing the very traditional Bedouin Saudi, costumes that probably you can't find them in the streets, or they don't even wear in their own homes. Everything is so refined and restructured and rebranded, so to speak. So we talked about color, we talked about design, but let's talk about the language behind the design that we miss when we look at cultural costumes. Again, back in my day, the children of the 80s, almost like beginning of the 90s, we did not want to be associated with cultural costumes, because to us it was old-fashioned, age, because we're reminded by our aunts and uncles and grandparents, and this is way too old. We don't want to associate with that. But the trend again is definitely coming back. What do you think about the hidden communication? The costumes or design as a hidden communication tool?
I think it is, I understand where, I think my mom would say the same thing where, a lot of, traditional dresses, they weren't as popular amongst, generations in like the 70s or 80s because it was associated with, older people. But I think at least if you are from, a different cultural community. And I think maybe with social media and more access to other parts of the world, I think more people want to expose more of their culture. And so there are times where maybe some generations forgot how we used to dress, or how, let's say in our culture, at least, like in Blad al-Sham, compared to like the Khalij, like the Gulf region, you have more men, let's say, that wear the white dishdashes, white thobes. But in, Blad al-Sham, like the Levant area, you might see more of the women's dresses, but you don't see too many of the men's actual traditional clothes, which is more like a kumbaz with stripes through, or even, let's say if you go to more Syria, Damascus especially, you see more of a vest. You don't see those, you don't see them as much as you used to. But I think now people are trying to at least come in tune with their culture more, or reconnect, but also with the display of it. I think also, even outside interest, it could be, tourism or anything where, people want to learn more about what is available. So it kind of forces you, the native, to also reconnect. It's like, how could an outsider want to connect with my culture if I don't know my own? So I think something like that would be, it is more important. Like, for example, I use the kumbaz, which, as a robe, you can lift it up to show the sharwal, like your pants, or you can have it be a full-on robe. And honestly, many other men, whether from, Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, a lot of us, I think, forgot it was a thing. Maybe it was some gimmick to us at ice cream shops or kanafa stores, or, but that this is generally how a lot of men dressed. And recently I've been seeing advertisements from these cities, whether it's like Salt, Damascus, or Nablus, where they're advertising selling these fabrics. And I think it's also a driver of the local economy and local artisans, because, within history, even in that region, there was a time when the Industrial Revolution broke out, so nobody wanted cotton or silk from our region anymore. So a lot of people lost their livelihoods early in like the 1800s. Because now it's being produced in a factory in Austria, let's say. So, even the fez hat, there's, for example, in Cairo, I think there's only one shop that still makes like the Tarboosh hat, and they know by the size of your head, like looking at you, what size it would be. But in Istanbul, where, where the main authority of the Ottoman Empire was, the fez hat was banned. But some places that it still lingered on. So it's tough, trying to bring back the old, or at least document or preserve some of the craft.
Speaking of that, so my mom is from Salt. My dad was born in Salt, but I just found out that Qabilat al-Azab, the Azab family, are originally from Haifa, Palestine. So they were farmers in Haifa, but also they were farmers slash soldiers. So they had high capability of fighting. No wonder Ailat al-Azab always they're fighting amongst each other and yelling at each other because they have that hot blood in them. So a lot of them as a cavalry actually joined the military in Palestine and through Jordan. But that thobe, like the stripe, a costume where the men can actually lift it and tuck it on their belt, and then so they can expose their pants. And the reason for that, which I learned when I was in Salt, because I saw them when they walking in the street, they have a thobe, long or at length, and then when I see them in the fields, they have them lifted and tucked against their through their belt in order for them to work the fields, or if there's an area that's very muddy or dusty, in order not to soil it because they're going into the house too.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting observation. And I told my mom, I was like, is that the same costume? She goes, yeah, it's made that way. It's almost like a robe. And it's, secured with the belt. So if they need to go save somebody or pull somebody from a well, or somebody fell, or they have to, secure a horse, a wild horse, or a horse that just, that freaked out, they can actually do it really quick, and they run with
or chase you. Yeah.
Okay. Exactly. Somebody's chasing them because they're fighting. But that brings, old memory. Before going to assault in the 70s, you can actually, most of the people had the traditional, and they're mostly Palestinian / Jordanian, so they had the traditional thobe or dress on, women and men. Even the younger generation, they had the modern, pants and shirt, and the women had the kind of midi dresses, but a lot of them still wore, it's very comfortable, wore their traditional costumes. And I think it just, as they were really comfortable with it, number one. Number two, as you said, it's not made in a factory. Those clothings were made by their own mom or their grandmother, stitched by hand. It took a long time to put together. And for them to not to wear it, you're not honoring that heritage and not honoring that tradition. But as you said, as factory made clothing got to even rural area, the products got to the rural area. Now we have the mindset that you don't have to hold on or cling to one piece of clothing. You can have so many huge collection. If you don't like it, it gets old, you can throw it out, you can have more. But it becomes only a symbol of less than carrying on the heritage, because that piece of clothing that your grandmother actually handmade or hand stitched, it was passed on to the younger generation as a family heirloom. I'll give you an example. When I got married, 1992, my mother-in-law made my veil, and she made my flower bouquet. It's handmade from cloth. The sack that is, when we go around in the wedding and people will tip you or give you your favors, the checks and the money. That satin bag was handmade by Ehab's grandmother. Do you know what I'm saying? And that was 1992. But because their culture, asks them, or it's a duty towards their culture to make something for the new bride, they actually put the effort, into it. So in some family, I think that's still alive, but I agree with you, because industrialism and, China and India and all these big factory made the new generation have a different mindset about the heritage of clothing or heritage of style. They rather look like the Kardashian than their own mother or their own grandmother, which is sad, kind of, but it is, it is what it is. So, it's absolutely a hidden language. It's a tool of communication that I honor my family. Like, I'm wearing a dress, it's a keffiyeh pattern, right? So right now, we never had this growing up in the 80s or the 90s. Keffiyeh was only for men or for women if they need be to cover their head. Like if they're desperate, they grab their husband's keffiyeh. Keffiyeh back then was not worn by women unless you're really, really desperate, you know what I'm saying, to cover your head. But now you have, which is absolutely beautiful because I get to wear it in a very different style, in a very different way, sending a different message, very modern way too. And I have a top, I have a skirt, I have a dress, I have a long sleeve shirt, I have a short sleeve shirt. But I agree with you also, social media, I know has, people get upset at social media, but it does have a benefit bringing the whole world together. And the world these days is such a small place that people are interested in what we are wearing. They're interested in the heritage. If this pattern, if somebody like Chanel is all black and white, this is all black and white. If somebody likes it, they can make it and they can encourage people as a designer house to wear it, regardless whether they know the meaning behind it or not, or the significance of the pattern. It doesn't really matter. You know, the more people are wearing it, even the better. So it has become such a trend that the new generations almost, mastering an unlimited mindset as far as like what they are wearing. If they like it, they'll wear it. If the message is good, they wear it. If the culture is attractive and it matches their belief system, they will wear it. Back then, it was very segregated. Why are you wearing keffiyeh? You're not from Levitan, Mishami, wala Palestini, wala Suri. Why are you wearing keffiyeh? Like, what are you trying to say? And that's a hidden message back then. If somebody is wearing the Irish flag, like a t-shirt with the Irish flag, and you're an Arab, like, what are you trying to say? Are you loyal to Ireland more than loyal to your country? So you had to be careful back then what you are wearing, because it is a hidden language, but the older generation translated that language very, very different than now. Does that make sense? What do you think?
It does. And I think, especially generations now, and honestly, I consider even people, let's say in their 40s and 50s today who are on social media, still a social media generation, because they know how to use it. Like they don't have to post.
We try. Not as good as you guys, but we try.
They don't have to post, but they know how to interact with it. And so, they read comments, they see things, they have an algorithm, their interests show. And so, now I think when people, let's say if somebody wears, a random Irish flag and they're not Irish, now they can explain it. I think now they know, okay, if I am asked the question, why are you wearing it? I have a reason. So, now I can describe it. So, you are more confident, with that. Or I'd like to think people have more access to knowledge now. Even if they don't look for it, I feel like it finds them at some point. So they know if they're supporting a cause, whether it's solidarity with a cause, or whether they just love it, whether maybe they could have simply just traveled there and loved their experience. So, sometimes I don't even watch soccer or football, but sometimes I like to buy a jersey. So it's cool. In another place, I like the colors. I like the country I was in, so I'm gonna have it.
Yeah, so. It's almost like, again, wearing that jersey, it could be, and walking down the street with it, people can say, okay, he likes soccer, he's supportive of that country, he must have been to that country, maybe he is from that country. Do you know what I'm saying? But, don't you see how it actually triggers people to interact, or triggers people to think, or trigger people to reach out and say, oh, I like that jersey. I have no idea how many times, doesn't matter where I am, whether Egypt and London or here in the United States, people tell us like, I love your outfit. And then I'll say, yeah, this is, especially if I'm wearing something that is made by a community online that, advocates for human rights or whatever, but that's how the information gets shared, right? It's like, oh, really? Can you give me the website? Can you give me the link, and I will share the link, and they can advocate. Well, by buying that piece of clothing, they can advocate for that. But you guys are very lucky in a sense that you can get the connection very, very fast. And also you can clarify the connection a lot faster, because it can go either way in my time, either really good or really, really bad.
Yeah.
If you encounter somebody that doesn't like how you look, they might do something or insult you or make, not so nice comment, and you won't be able to answer that. But on social media, you kind of protect it through the device. And I agree with you. AI would actually know when you have an interest in something, a piece of clothing, you can tell the pattern starts building up and you get more of these links about that clothing, which is nice because people helping people. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. If I like your piece, I can actually support you and buy it from you, especially if that money is donated from that company, donated to a really, really good cause. So, social media is very interesting, but that's another episode. So, but also part of wearing something like this, it is a memory and also it's a heritage. Let me tell you a story. My mom is one of 6 girls. The youngest girl, my aunt, married a very famous OBGYN MD doctor, Palestinian, and he was the first Jordanian generation in Jordan. So he was born in Jordan. His parents are from Ramallah. So when he married my aunt, he just finished medical school. So the Jordanian government gave him a scholarship to go to Nigeria to actually help and do volunteer work in Lagos, one of the largest hospitals for pregnancy delivery, labor and delivery. So he went there and they lived there for about 10 years. They had the first 3 children, which are all boys, there in Lagos. So the scholarship ended and he had to come back to Jordan. He opened his own hospital, which was one of the top hospitals for women's health and labor and delivery. So I used to go to their house. He was so busy, right? He was faculty, he was teaching. My aunt was busy with the kids. So when I was playing outside, who lived with them? His mom, after his dad passed away, Allah yarhamu, his mom lived with him. So we're playing outside and we're making so much noise. I met her before. I didn't know that she was in there. I thought it was the help in there, or my mom was in there, or my aunt was in there. So we're playing and we're hitting the soccer ball everywhere, making so much noise. And this older big lady came out at me, running at me, but she was full clothes in the traditional Palestinian clothing, الثوب, التطريز, والعباية, her head, and she came rushing at us. She goes, "You guys are making so much noise. I can't even focus. I'm trying to make dinner." And I said, "Who are you?" I had no idea who she is. She stopped and she said, "What do you mean who I am? I am Muhammad's mom." I said, "Oh my God, Grandma." I just called her Sitto. I was like, "I'm so sorry." And then I stopped. I remember I was knee high. She's a big lady, very tall, and knee high. And I just looked up, and honestly, all I remember, Haitham, is this beautiful mosaic of stitching, tatriz everywhere, the colors. And she was asking me a lot of questions, like, go play over there. And all I heard, wah, 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 like Snoopy, right? Because I would just mesmerize by all the color and all the structures on her thobe, on her dress. And then all I remember her saying, "Can you hear me?" And I said, yeah, I know, we have to play far away. And then she walked out, but she walked back into the house. But I never ever seen her not having the costume clothing on. That's how proud she is, because I think they migrated from Palestine into Amman to give their son Muhammad the best schooling, the best life. And look at him. He was very, very successful, and she was very proud of that. So it is probably by wearing that every single day, she did not feel as bad leaving Palestine behind, or leaving her family behind, or leaving her heritage behind. But also, can you imagine her son growing up watching her wash the dishes, doing laundry, preparing food with those dresses on? That's heritage. right?
Yeah.
That's just reminding him, it's like, don't forget who you are. Don't forget who you are. Just like the Native Americans here, right? Doesn't matter how modern you are. There's always a glimpse or a piece of jewelry or the piece of art that remind us, this is where I am. This is my heritage. So in order not to lose our traditional fashion, we need to keep that alive by wearing those pieces. I think it's very important to the older generation. Like I said, through the 80s, the 90s, I think we lost a little bit in the 2000s. I think the whole world was a little bit confused, but I can see it. I see it coming back. What do you think?
You know, even a loss of culture within, you know, in our regions, I think, you know, when you have also a pattern of either displacement or war, it's hard to keep track or hard to preserve some of these crafts. You know, I think especially like, let's say Syria, from 2011, I know a few artists for Tatriz, you know, around that. Not only have they been working on Palestinian embroidery, but also like Syrian embroidery, that they thought was also in danger, in that time, as, you know, many Syrians were, you know, refugees into Europe or, you know, Turkey. So, you know, and also when you have, women's collectives in these cities, where, you know, selling traditional craft or making traditional, handicrafts is their only source of income. I think it's yes, it's part of it is the preservation, but, you know, of culture. But also the difficulty is the preservation of self, as well, that, you know, hey, am I going to eat, you know, and, you know, it's nice that they could still do it, but yeah, some things suffer, and documentation can suffer, under circumstances like this. So, you know, in some areas as well, like let's say where I'm from in Tulkarem, their dress was not very, so this is kind of a thing that's known if you're from like Tulkarem, Nabis, Jenin. Their dresses are not very detailed. They're not known for detail on dresses because they were doing more things with their hands. So if you're talking about Tulkarem, where it's very, fallahin, like farmer style, the thing they would do with their hands mostly, for art was baskets, actually. So basketry was bigger than stitching dresses. So patterns on baskets was bigger, because a basket was useful to your environment if you were picking olives or figs, or, if you wanted to serve bread. It was, and, you know, transporting things on your head, let's say. So that was seen as, more practical for where they were, as opposed to, I'm going to stitch my own dress, versus I just need a dress. I need to do all these other things. And also, when it comes to ceramics, you know, let's say the water jugs, the jarra, you know, being able to store water in areas. So, you know, people's crafts also really depended on environment and what was seen as need. But also your craft yourself, especially if it's a dress, also changed depending on environment you were in. So, for example, if you go more towards the Naqab area or southern Jordan, like Ma'an or these areas, maybe the woman's dress has a mask piece to it. It could be art, but it could also be practical against dust storms or sandstorms to protect, you know, this area. So that's one way. Or, you know, just having, let's say, the hatta or keffiyeh when you are farming to protect your neck, or if you're wearing like more of the red shmer in the desert, you can also protect your nose and your mouth, from the like sandstorms or dust storms. So there were practical uses, and even with fashion, the kahal, that it was not just to look pretty. Even if you're a guy, it's to bounce some sun away from your eyes, so that you can keep going. Otherwise, they don't have sunglasses, so this is the closest. Like, eye black is the way to go forward. So yeah, it really depends on your elements a lot of times.
No, it's a very interesting point, because I agree. Kuhul, it was worn by everybody. Like, even as soon as a child can walk, because they're going to walk in the sand and they could be hit by the sandstorm or some kind of a wind and throw all the sand in their eyes, they will actually apply kuhul to the child, boys or girls. So that I know even from my grandmother's, stories. But that's very interesting, because football players, American football, right? They put the black under their eyes to block the sun if they're playing in a very sunny, warm day. But going back to, depending on the clothing, like you said, it's also was very functional depending on your circumstances and your and practicality of your environment. My grandmother from my mom's side, Al-Azab, when she got married, she had the whole, costume clothing and all the silver that she actually came from her father's house. She was wearing it every single day. My grandmother, the whole lineage of my family, the female, we have migraines, headache. So she suffered from migraine headaches, and my grandfather, Allah yarhamu, he was the only one of 11 boys he was college educated. He graduated from University of Baghdad, agriculture engineering, and he came back to the Salt in order to improve and elevate the quality of their farms. So he put one and one together. He goes, why do you keep complaining of your headache? You eat very healthy, and she didn't smoke, but she did work hard, around the house and sometimes in the fields. And then he goes, Halima, you are wearing so much silver on your head. But she refused for years to take that, like washing dishes, sweeping, doing laundry, cooking. She wear all that, the silver belt over her head and all the silver dangling here, her silver necklaces, her silver, bracelets, and she's working 8 hours, 9 hours around the house with it. He goes, Halima, you need to take that off. She goes, no, this is my family. This is my crown. You know what I'm saying? This is all I have left of what I used to be part of my, family relationship, family dynamics, and now I am in your house. This is my pride. So it took him years to convince him, because my mom used to tell me that maybe my mom is number 2, and she was maybe in 8th grade before her mom actually took that off, because the headaches were unbearable. And sure enough, when she stopped wearing all that silver, her headaches went away, or they got better. So it did not, she still had headaches, but that did not help. But carrying that weight, and it was so warm under that wool black clothing and thobes and all this stuff. And to the point that my grandfather, he said, he took her to the seamstress and he made her like the fashion, modern 1960s clothes, like the shirt and the skirts and stuff like that. And that's where she started wearing it, and she felt much better. But she had the duty and the responsibility to carry on her family heritage, even if that caused her a lot of suffering, a lot of pain. Now that is sticking to your identity for sure. Right? What do you think?
I think for sure. And
I won't do it. I'll be like, off. If this is causing a headache, I'll put it on the side. I'll admire it in the corner. I'll take care of it, and I will not, let it go to waste. But that's all they knew. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's interestingly, in the Ottoman days, when more of the urban classes wore the fez hat, the tarboosh, what was interesting with it is it was very practical if you were Muslim, because if you were making sujood, prostrating during prayer, you didn't have to take the hat off. It was parallel with the floor. So it lined up really nicely.
I didn't even think of that. They did not take their hats, the tarboosh, when they were praying?
Well, you didn't have to take it off. So because the idea was sort of modernization from going from a turban, from a amame to that hat, which it's part of the, you could say, modernization at the time of the 19th century. So yeah, with Tarboosh, you didn't really, well, mainly if you were Muslim and who prostrated on the floor, you didn't really have to take it off because it lined up with your forehead on the floor.
I didn't even think of that. So it was an upgrade, right, from al-amama.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, in a way.
But I feel like the turban, the amam was a pillow, so it would have been nice.
That is absolutely true. Have you ever held a turban?
Never actually held one, no.
It's heavy. It's not light. I don't know how they rode horses with that thing, how they bared, like it's so warm. It's thick. It's not, because underneath al-amama there is actually tarboosh underneath. It's very short, like the Moroccan one, and you have all that cloth around it. So it's not light. So you have to be very strong, with strong back and strong neck to keep it on all day long like that.
It reminds me of these Sikh communities in India. It's very long. If you had them roll it out, it's very, very long. So it's it's I don't know how much time it takes to wrap it properly and make it look organized. But I commend them for that.
I think as Arabs, we're very lazy, so I think that's why we'll put a hat in the middle so you can take it off and put it back on without worrying about rewrapping it. So you're the new generation. How do you guys stay connected with your heritage through costumes? Or I know there are so many different symbols out there in clothing and in style and in fashion. Is that important to you guys to really keep the heritage intact? And is it part of your identity, or you feel you guys are kids of the world basically, and you don't have to put that much effort, or as much effort as we did growing up?
So if you're speaking specifically to our culture, I feel like the women are more ahead of it, as opposed to the men. I don't, it's tough to say because I feel like, again, I'm only speaking for our region specifically, and then I can maybe think of some of the others on my mind. But within at least the Bled Sham region, I don't feel like the men have really kept up with traditional clothing. Even the young generation, very rare. So even at special events, you don't see it. Very rare. Maybe they'll put one of the, left hats, like the, keffiyeh, like a hatta or shmagh or one of these things, but that's only one piece. It's not a full body, like, costume. So for my henna event with my wife, I actually did wear a kumbaz and shirwal and a hatta with a ragal around it. So I actually did wear it. But what's interesting, it doesn't have to be America versus this is in Palestine or Jordan, but they wouldn't do that. The men wouldn't do that in other places. Maybe they'll do just the headpiece, but just wear a regular suit and tie. And I didn't want to do that because I owned one, and I knew about it, and I've worn it before. So I wanted to, showcase that. And, I'd like to think it was the star of the show, but
Well, I'm
but
sure you were. I'm very proud of you
yeah.
for wearing that. That's amazing. That is absolutely beautiful. I'm sure you were the star of the show. I'm not sure if your fiance, well, back then your
No,
fiance really
she was
appreciated it.
she was the star for sure.
Good,
But
good.
I think if I just wore a suit and tie, because I've worn a suit and tie in other events. But if we're all wearing thwab and embroidered items, I want to also be part of it. I don't want to be left out. I want to be part of it too, because I have it. But unfortunately, other men, older than me, younger than me, that go through, proud of them for going through these big events in their life, but they're not wearing it. And
Why was that important to you to do that?
yeah, I think maybe because I'm into history a lot. And I've seen friends in other cultures so for example, I have a lot of Pakistani friends, a lot of Indian friends, and they're always decked out in cultural clothes. At their weddings, you will not see a white dress and tuxedo, let's say. There are always so many colors and very shiny, and goes for the guys and the girls. If I was going to a South Asian event and I wanted to borrow something like a shalwar kameez that they had multiple options. And meanwhile, I didn't have any options for my own. So it sometimes it felt a little odd when they would ask me, "Oh, I'm going to a Arab wedding. I'm going to, this Palestinian wedding, what should I wear?" And then I just say, "Oh, a suit and tie is fine, or a button down." And there's something about that felt off, so there's something definitely like odd about it. So I felt like something was missing in a sense. That's
Good for
kind of
you.
why.
No, I mean, do you think your generation thinks that if they do that more often, they are stuck in the past, or they're supporting the past, or triggering some kind of a conversation about the past?
I think a big part of it is just ignorance. So a lot of people might not know that this exists.
Really?
Maybe they would be more excited if it was around. But even living in Palestine, I didn't get to see the kumbas. Like maybe someone was selling it, but maybe they were just selling fabric. There are a lot of fabric stores, no matter what. But I had examples when it came to the women, but I never had examples when it came to the men, unless it was something that was more just a loose thobe that was just like, practical, like, hey, it's hot, I want it to be breezy, or if it's for a religious purpose or a religious context, you can wear them at any point. But because some of those robes are like pajamas for some people, but I never got to see the true cultural clothing of the men, even when I lived there. As far back as my memories of like late 90s, I didn't see it. I didn't see it in Jerusalem. I didn't see it in Nablus. I didn't see it in Bethlehem or Al Khalil. I didn't see it. I knew of other handicrafts, things people did with their hands, but clothing, no, I didn't. So I didn't have much of an example, and I only kind of learned about it through my mom mentioning it, saying, "Would you want something like this?" And I said, "Oh, that's interesting." So yeah, sure, I'll get one.
Maybe because the women's clothing are prettier, and they are more,
They are
more versatile. You know what I'm saying? That you can make them
they are
short, you can
prettier.
make them tall. You know what I'm saying? Like you can make so many pieces of them, but the men, it's kind of one style.
I was gonna say, I just remembered that thing as the example of the men's clothing with that is usually people that sell tamar hindi or coffee on the street. So it's sometimes it's seen as like something funny or a gimmick, that this is for a particular like profession. because it gets your attention, of course. Like, hey, yeah, I want to buy some juice, but we don't think that this is normal wear, or maybe I'll see Debke teams wear it. But yeah, the thing is, even in other events, you don't see it as much. It's not celebrated as much, and so yeah, it's something that I think the men of, honestly, 2 generations before me, something happened.
Something happened. I think this is your next mission, is to dig deeper and find out what is going on, because I can tell you the women's fashion, it's even more than when I was growing up with the traditional stuff, but they're just so creative.
And the books. There's a lot of books and literature,
Yes.
As well, and it's really cool. Like, I don't know much about it, but sometimes I like to just see the colors.
It's so beautiful, but they are so creative these days with it. Like I said, I have a plethora of options that I can buy. Yani kufiyya, I have maybe 10 pieces now. I have a suit jacket, I have a dress, I have, like I said, a shirt, I have a sweater, it's so much of it. But also, even when you go to Egypt, when you go down to Upper Egypt, in Aswan, in Luxor, the clothes are so pretty, but they have modernized them in a way. They're very practical. They're easy to put on, easy to take off. So we might have to have you start a movement here for the men clothing and bring it back to life. It should be for real. But tell me really briefly, how was Libya and Tunis?
So it was amazing. So Tunis was really cool because
you just got back. That's for our audience and listeners. Okay.
Yeah.
How long were you gone for?
I was gone for about 10 or 11 days. So I started in Tunis, the capital, a lot of French colonial architecture. But if you go towards the old side of the Medina, you can see the Islamic architecture where, basically the main center was a mosque. So they have the Zaytuna Mosque, and then you have the souks, and then you have where people live. So that's generally how Islamic architecture worked in a lot of places like Fez and Morocco, and Tunis, the capital. So it was really interesting. There's a lot of tuna and eggs in a lot of their food. Yeah, there's a lot of tuna, a lot of eggs. But luckily I did not get sick. So then I went to historic sites. I went to Carthage, and which is very huge. Like, the historic sites are spread out so much. So I walked a lot that day. I walked 25,000 steps that day. And I went to Sidi Bou Said with its blue and white buildings.
That's beautiful, yeah.
And then I went to the Roman ruins of Dugga. I went to Kairouan, which is like the Islamic capital of North Africa. Al-Azhar can also argue that with that, but Kairouan was a very special city, also known for carpet making. I went further into the Sahara, so I went to Shbika, Matmata, Qasr Hdada, Tatooine. These are really interesting places. Shat Jreed, which had like salt lakes. I went to Jerba Island, the biggest island in North Africa. I went to El Jem, which has the largest Colosseum outside of Italy. El Jem Colosseum. Went back to Tunis, and it was just a great experience. I did a private tour with a driver, so that was nice. And the north was very green and with flowers because it was still springtime. So there were times where it was very chilly as well. And then immediately to the south, and I got to see more of like the Amazigh, like architecture, in their homes. So that was cool. And then Libya, it was security situation was very tight. You can only go in a group, and we had tourist police, intelligence with us, and all of that. So you couldn't move anywhere without at least somebody from the security apparatus with you. But we got to see Tripoli, Tarboosh, and it was really cool. And it's interesting. You'll notice a theme of Roman, but also a lot of Ottoman related things. A lot of the mosques in Tripoli were actually built in the Ottoman days, as opposed to early Islamic caliphates. And then we went to some sites, Sabrata, which Sabrata and Leptis Magna, or Labd al-Kubra. These three cities made up the province of Tripolitania, so the three cities. And it was cool because it has a mix of the Numidian kingdom, which was a Amazigh kingdom, then the Phoenicians from Sur in Lebanon, the mixed became the Punic or Carthaginians, lost to Rome. So you had Roman civilization. You had, then you had attacks by Germanic tribes called the Vandals. So it was really interesting seeing layers of that on each other.
Did you travel through all Libya, or were you limited to a certain region?
No, you're kind of limited to whatever is in the same province as the capital Tripoli, because Libya is split under two governments, and the internationally recognized government by the UN is based out of Tripoli, but the other side is based out of Benghazi. So different province as well, which is called Barqa or Cyrenaica. There's a third province. It's Fezzan. That's more in the desert. But yeah, I missed my wife, so I had to come back. So
10 days. That's short. I mean, Libya is a big country. There's a lot to see in Tunis too. But how was the food in Libya?
It was good. A lot of pasta. Because they were under Italian. They were under Italian colonial rule.
Right. Yeah.
But interestingly, the only thing they really gained from the Italians was pasta. Really, that's
are they into
pasta.
Meat or seafood or poultry?
I didn't see as much seafood. But I did see. I didn't see as much seafood as Tunisia, but there was definitely. I had a lot more lamb there, and it was really, really good. And my favorite dish was called rushda. Rushda is the noodles was shariya, so vermicelli noodles, and then it had tomato sauce, chickpeas, and I had it with lamb, and it was really, really good.
It's
really
funny
good.
because I had that same combination without the lamb, but with seafood in northern Italy. So northern Italy, when they make the pesto with pasta, of course, pesto is huge up there. But they will put chickpeas in the pasta, or green peas, which I never had before, except in Rapallo, northern Italy. So, Haitham, can you remind us where people can find you and follow your adventures and travels?
Yeah, of course. So you guys can find me on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and my username is at Haythoomi, HAITHOOOMI, and that's the same across all of the platforms.
That's awesome. Well, welcome back. I'm glad you made it back. You didn't decide to stay in North Africa, so I can actually interview you and talk to you. What's your next trip?
Within the U.S., Chicago, I've never been, actually, which is kind of funny.
Be really nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been.
I've been to Congo, never been to Chicago. So it's kind of funny.
I'm not surprised. I went to Case Western Reserve undergrad in Ohio. Yeah. In Ohio. I could have driven to Chicago. I was there for 4 years. Yeah, easy. I never been. But go ahead. So Chicago.
And then I hopefully will be Malta in September, so that'll be nice.
I heard that's beautiful. That's on my list too. Malta and Sicily. I would love to do Sicily too. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, even with your jet lag. Hopefully you get some sleep
Of course.
and
Thank you.
some rest. You are more than welcome. So we have reached the end of our hour. As a reminder, these episodes are uploaded weekly on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube by the Mindset Master Moments. If you have enjoyed this, please like, share, and hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss any episode, and it is free. This community is sponsored by humanity and supported by everyday people's stories, just like Haitham's story and his travels. So please find us, join us, support us, and as always, be kind. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Hope to see you next time. This is Slava the Jordanian.